Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you're an exhausted new parent running on exactly zero sleep and a whole lot of coffee, or maybe a caregiver desperately trying to figure out why the little one in your arms just won't settle down, I am speaking directly to you today. We know it can feel completely overwhelming, but take a deep breath because we're going to decode your baby's secret language right now. We'll be using some incredibly helpful source material today, primarily drawing from the experts over at the Mayo Clinic, to break down exactly what those tears actually mean, how to systematically address them, and honestly, just as importantly, how to protect your own mental peace in the entire process. So, let's just start with the million-dollar question that haunts literally every nursery at 2 in the morning. Does every single cry mean the baby is hungry? If you've ever found yourself desperately trying to feed a screaming baby who just keeps pushing the bottle or the breast away, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's incredibly stressful, right? You naturally assume hunger is the only issue, and when feeding doesn't magically fix it, the panic really starts to set in. But I want to challenge that assumption right out of the gate and validate the immense stress you're feeling, because the short answer, it's a resounding no. Hunger is really just one word in your baby's vocabulary. All right, let's move into section 1, the baby's language and why they actually cry. To get to the bottom of what they're actually saying, we need to completely shift our mindset today. When your baby cries and you can't immediately make it stop, it is so easy to feel like you're failing as a caregiver. But if we're going to become active translators, we have to drop that guilt entirely. Crying is literally your infant's only form of communication right now. It's not a critique of your parenting, it's just them trying to talk to you. And get this, according to our medical source material, perfectly healthy, incredibly well cared for newborns cry between 1 to 4 hours every single day. Let that sink in for a second. Up to 4 hours is completely 100% normal. So if you feel like you're struggling, please know that the struggle is just a standard part of the process. You really aren't doing anything wrong. Okay, let's dive into this ultimate translation guide. When the tears start, you can systematically just run right through this checklist. First, yeah, absolutely check for hunger, but look for early cues like lip smacking or them bringing their little hands to their mouths before it turns into a full-blown scream. If they aren't hungry, look to their comfort. Do they just need to suck on a pacifier, or maybe they're just craving the physical security of being against your chest? Fatigue is another massive trigger here. Newborns need 16 or more hours of sleep a day. If they're awake too long, they get super cranky. Of course, always check for a wet or dirty diaper. Sometimes they just crave movement, like being in a swing, or that secure feeling of being tightly swaddled in a light blanket. Also, check their environment. Are they too hot? A really great rule of thumb is to dress them in the exact same number of clothing layers that you are comfortable in currently. And finally, watch out for overstimulation. Too many bright lights or loud sounds can totally overwhelm them, meaning they might just need a quiet, dark room or some gentle white noise to reset. That brings us to section 2, practical ways to soothe your infant. Now that we know why they're crying, what do we actually do about it? Say you've checked the diaper. You know for a fact they aren't hungry, the room is the perfect temperature, but man, the tears are still flowing. We're going to move into some specific, actionable steps to comfort them when all those basic needs have already been met. But before we go through those tactics, I need you to hear this golden rule. It is impossible to spoil a newborn baby. If a well-meaning neighbor or a family member tells you that picking up your crying infant is going to spoil them, the experts at the Mayo Clinic say they are completely wrong. Responding to your baby's cries with extra attention in these early months is a biological necessity. You're building trust. You are not spoiling them. These simple, soothing strategies are incredibly effective. If the baby is fed and dry, just offering a pacifier or holding them snugly to your chest works wonders. Gently patting their back actually mimics your heartbeat from when they were in the womb. If you're stuck at home and losing your mind a bit, just getting out of the house for a drive can work absolute miracles. The low rumble of a car engine is basically a magic sleep button for a lot of infants. Swaddling them in a light blanket gives them that secure, tight feeling they loved before they were born. And seriously, don't underestimate white noise. A simple fan or a recording of ocean sounds can drown out the chaotic noises of the house and help them finally drift off. And, this brilliantly illustrates the flip side of the coin. Sometimes you do everything right. You've gone through the entire checklist, they aren't sick, they are fed, burped, swaddled, and yet they are still crying. Our source material gently reminds us that sometimes infants just need to cry to release some pent-up energy before they sleep. If all their needs are met, it is perfectly okay and actually healthy to place them in a safe crib, walk out of the room, and just let them cry for 10 to 15 minutes. Often, they'll actually settle themselves down much faster than if you keep hovering and trying to intervene. Let's move to section 3. Is it colic or just normal crying? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between normal crying and colic. What if the crying just doesn't stop?
We need to figure out if your baby's distress goes beyond basic, solvable needs and falls into that dreaded category of colic. Normal crying is usually solvable. You feed them, they stop. It also varies throughout the day in terms of timing and intensity. Colic, on the other hand, is a very specific pattern. The medical definition of colic is crying that lasts for 3 or more hours a day for 3 or more days a week. It usually starts suddenly without any apparent reason whatsoever, and it often strikes at the exact same time every single day or evening. The most reassuring thing I can possibly tell you about colic is that it happens to perfectly healthy babies, and it naturally resolves itself by the time they are 3 to 4 months old. It is an absolute endurance test for sure, but it is temporary.
Up next is Section 4, Medical Red Flags and Exactly When to Consult the Doctor. While colic is common and generally harmless, there are moments when crying points to something more serious. And this is where your role as a translator becomes absolutely vital to their health. If your baby's crying is ever accompanied by a high fever, a complete and total refusal to feed, extreme lethargy where they're just unusually unresponsive, or any difficulty breathing, you must bypass those home soothing strategies immediately. Don't try to wait it out or offer a pacifier. These are definitive medical red flags drawn directly from our medical sources, and they mean you need to consult a pediatrician or head to an emergency room right away. And finally, Section 5, Caring for yourself so you can care for your baby. Okay, we spent all this time talking about the baby, but for this final section, we are shifting the narrative focus entirely to you. Caregiver burnout is incredibly real. It is completely destigmatized in modern pediatric care, and frankly, it requires your direct, immediate attention. You cannot pour from an empty cup. First, I want to offer you a very real light at the end of the tunnel here. This intense crying typically peaks in the first 2 months. As your baby reaches that 2 to 4 month mark, the crying will significantly decrease. They're going to start smiling, they're going to start sleeping longer stretches, and I promise you will start to feel human again. You just have to navigate these first few challenging weeks. But what do you do in that exact moment when the crying feels like it's literally drilling into your skull and you can feel your patience totally snapping? Here are 3 vital de-escalation steps. Step 1, put the baby safely in their crib. Even if they're screaming, the crib is safe. Step 2, leave the room. Physically put a closed door between you and the crying. Step 3, take 10 to 15 minutes to literally just breathe. Put on some noise-canceling headphones, listen to your favorite music, or just take some deep meditative breaths. Babies are incredibly intuitive. They can literally sense adult stress, and your frustration can actually make them cry harder. By stepping away and calming your own nervous system down, you're actually helping them. And this leads us to a highly critical, grave safety warning derived directly from the Mayo Clinic's guidance. Never hit, shake, or jerk a baby. No matter how angry or completely sleep-deprived you get, shaking a baby in a fleeting moment of lost control can lead to severe, irreversible brain injury or even death. This is exactly why walking away and putting them safely in the crib when you feel overwhelmed is not bad parenting. It is the safest, most responsible choice you can possibly make. Finally, please know that you do not have to do this whole parenting thing entirely alone. Ask for help completely guilt-free. Tag in your spouse, or ask family and friends not just to come hold the baby, but to do your laundry, run some errands, or cook a few meals. If you're feeling a deep sadness or anxiety that just persists for weeks, talk to your doctor immediately. Postpartum depression is very real for both mothers and fathers. And if you ever find yourself in a crisis moment, reach out to hotlines. In the U.S., the National Alliance on Mental Illness has a free helpline you can call at 1-800-950-6264. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, you guys. It is the ultimate sign of strength as a parent. We're going to wrap up this explainer with a really powerful reminder. Taking a break makes you a better parent. Self-care is quite literally childcare. By keeping yourself calm and supported, you're creating the best possible environment for your little one to thrive. If we stop viewing our baby's tears as some kind of grade on our parenting and start viewing them simply as a clumsy, urgent attempt at a conversation, how will that change the way you listen tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly wish you a very quiet, very restful night ahead.